Hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to another video. So today we are gonna jump right into some jerkbait tips. So I've been fishing a jerkbait a ton lately as it's been getting colder and it's been producing some giant fish. I realized that over the last few weeks or month of fishing, I haven't really given or done a full video on jerkbait fishing, so that's what we're going to take a look at today. Now again, I'm no pro. I'm still learning a ton every single time I'm out on the water, so these tips are going to be things that I've learned over the last few years and things that I've been implementing into my daily fishing with jerkbaits that I hope will help you out. Every single jerkbait that I'm showing in this video is available over at acmtackle.com if you guys click the link down in the description below. Also, if you use my code SB10, it'll save 10% off your entire order. You'd be helping me out, you save yourself 10%, and you get some sick jerkbaits. I've got a quick selection of jerkbaits that I've been throwing around. My favorite jerkbait to throw around is going to be the Megabass 110, either the +1 or the regular sized. You can see that there's a couple different color selections here, from transparent and pretty natural looking to just insane black, pink, gray, speckled back. Like, this one was an absolute huge surprise for me. But before we talk about that, let's talk about color selection. So on days like today, you have the sun out, light wind, I'm gonna go with something like the Pro Blue. I also don't mind, once the wind kicks up a little bit, throwing something with a little bit of flash just to catch their attention. But generally I'm gonna lean on the side of making the bait look more natural when it's really clear out, especially when you're dealing with clear water. Once you get a little bit of cloud coverage or rain, that's when you can seriously shake things up. So I was talking about this, I think it's called Black Viper. My buddy Hunter gave me this jerkbait. He was like, yo, I got a bait for you, and it's weird, but it's just something dumb that I think you would throw and catch fish on. And sure enough, I tied this thing on one day when it was blowing like 15 to 20 miles an hour, and it was super cloudy and kind of like dark, dim conditions, and I tied this on and I was just catching them one after the other, and it's become one of my favorite colors to throw, even in super clear water like I'm fishing here today. Once you have those dark conditions, a bait like this just gets them fired up. That's also when I'll generally pick a bait that has matted sides or it's not transparent. I just really want them to see the bait, and when you have clouds overhead or it's raining, the matted baits tend to work a little bit better. Deciding which bait to throw or which depth jerkbait just depends on where you're finding fish. One thing that I've noticed recently that's been really cool is that these fish really like to eat jerkbaits from underneath. So if the bait is up over their head and you twitch it, they'll come up and chomp it from below. If they get parallel with it and it's right in front of their face and you're jerking it and just twitching it back to the boat, they'll follow it pretty much all the way back. But I've found that those fish tend not to eat. So a lot of it has to do with what depth you're finding fish and what depth that you're fishing. But once you get into an open water scenario where you're fishing for suspended fish, I've found that sometimes you need to throw the +2, where this is going to get down like 8 to 10 feet and they'll come up another like 3 or 4 feet to eat it. And sometimes you can throw the regular 110 over 30 feet of water, and even though it's only getting 5 or 6 feet down, they'll rocket that 10 feet up from the middle of the water column all the way up to eat it. It's really just dependent on how active the fish are. So besides the Megabass 110s, I've got this new Shimano World Minnow with the flash boost. And coincidentally, this is another one of those baits that my buddy Hunter gave me. He was like, oh dude, I got another jerkbait for you. First day that I threw this, I went out and caught only 2 fish. It was a really tough day, but one of them was almost 8 pounds. Got him! Oh, that's a big fish. Feels big. Oh, it's a giant. Calm down. Calm down. Come here. Oh my God. That is a freaking tank. All right, it locked in at 780. But God, what a giant, beautiful, healthy fish. I mean, it's just a tank. So I was slightly skeptical about this whole flash boost deal but it's incredible looking, honestly. Like when this bait is suspended there in the water column, that flash boost system built into the body is just shimmering, just like a shad would be if it was sitting there. But it caught a giant fish for me. I'm really happy with how this thing suspends and looks, and this would be along the lines of the Megabass 110. It's not going to dive super deep. You can get the World Diver from Shimano, and that one does get a bit deeper, I believe 8 to 10, but their regular World Minnow is another 5 to 6 foot diving jerkbait. But besides this, I have a couple Lucky Crafts, Megabass, and this Shimano, and that's pretty much where I round out my jerkbait selection. Actually, I did forget one, the Jackal Re-Range. The Jackal Re-Range is another really cool one. I really like the weight transfer system in it. It sounds like a shotgun's going off when you cast it. But besides that, keep it kind of simple. You can jump around and try a couple different baits. They are a little bit on the expensive end, but generally you're not going to lose them. I'm gonna rig this World Minnow up and we are gonna get to fishing a little bit. Let's talk about the setups really quickly. For the +2 or deeper diving jerkbaits, I'm using a 7.3 light medium heavy. Both rods I'm throwing 10-pound fluorocarbon with high-speed gear ratio reels. The reason I'm going with high-speed gear ratio is just because I can pick up line faster that way. Again, I'm not moving the bait at all with the reel. It's all twitching with the rod. The smaller jerkbait setup is a 7-foot medium heavy. The difference in these two rods, I would say, is like one of them is going to be a little bit more responsive and faster, and that's the 7-foot medium heavy. I used to fish jerkbaits on it's like more parabolic action rod, but recently throwing it on that medium heavy, I just feel like you have a lot better response, and even the smallest twitch of the rod, you can feel the connection with that bait, even if it's at the end of your cast. Definitely become a big fan of it. Alright, so when I'm picking up the jerkbait to throw it around, normally my cast will go something like this. I'll just make a bomb cast, and the first few, I just want to get that bait down to where it will suspend. So you can just kind of quickly work it down there and then just let it sit. Now you're going to vary the amount of time you let it sit in between jerks, and you're going to vary how many times you're going to twitch the bait too. Sometimes it's just one, and then you let it pause. Sometimes it's 1, 2. Sometimes it's 3 twitches, but also you can really switch it up however. You can do the old 1, 2, pause 1, and then give it the long pause. Whatever it takes, basically. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Just let the fish tell you what they want. But again, varying that pause is the biggest thing, and like trying to remember when they bit. So if you let it sit there for 5 seconds and then you twitched it, another 5 seconds, twitched it, another 5 seconds, and then you got one to eat, I'd say that 5-second rule is pretty good. Sometimes it's got to be longer, like up to a minute. Sometimes you barely let it sit for a second, but it's that pause that gets them to eat. So you always have to pause it, and you're really just moving this bait with the rod. So the cool thing about a jerkbait is you can literally fish them anywhere. You can fish them shallow, you can fish them deep, you can fish them on points, docks, break lines, riprap, bluff walls. You can fish it through cover. Like, I love throwing jerkbaits through trees. It's so fun, and especially when you hook into a fish, it's like, better hold on. So my favorite time to pick up a jerkbait is going to be in clean water, when you've got some decent wind and clouds. So pretty much the opposite of this. Granted, they'll still follow it and they'll still eat it once in a while, but there's a very big difference between fishing a jerkbait when you have the right conditions and when they're kind of poor, like right now. Would I prefer clouds or wind? I definitely prefer wind. I don't really care if it's sunny or cloudy. I just think that when you got a good wind blowing, there's a much higher chance of catching fish on any moving bait. All right, you guys, that's where I'm going to wrap it up. I really hope you enjoyed these quick tips on jerkbait fishing and enjoyed a big fish catch. Don't forget to click the links down in the description below. Head over to acmtackle.com. Use my code SB10 if you're going to grab some of these jerkbaits. Save yourself 10% off your entire order. Again, really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a happy holidays. We'll see you in the new year.